Meeting for Tuesday, October 17, 2023. Before we get started, I did want to make sure that everybody knows that we're having a special called meeting to conduct some city business, and that will be followed by what's called a work session. And at the work session, we are going to discuss homelessness and downtown parking, which will immediately follow the meeting that we have just started. If you would, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have a call for attendance, please?
Commissioner Whitt?
Here.
Commissioner Bowles?
Here.
Commissioner Thomas?
Here.
Commissioner Freeman?
Here.
Mayor State?
Here. First off on the agenda, we have a presentation for recognition of new employees.
We have new employees, Paula Ballard, bus operator, Mass Transit, and Carrie Griggs, communications officer, emergency communications. If you guys will please come forward to the podium.
All right, we wanted to, I know this is
Don't be scared.
yeah, so this is something new that the city is doing. We're transitioning over to a process where the city commission, not by choice, but by law, has to approve all of our new employees. So for right now, as part of that transition, we're doing just a recognition of new employees. So we just wanted to take the time to welcome you to the city of Henderson. We have got, honestly, and I know I'm a little biased, but we have got some of the best department heads of any city that I've ever met. We're so happy that you all have joined us and joined the city of Henderson for employment. And we wanted to give you a chance to say a few words, if you would like, about your jobs and about what you're going to be doing for the city.
I joined 911, and I'm blessed to be here.
All right.
And I joined Hart as a driver, and I'm also blessed to be here.
That's fantastic. And I know that two of our departments that we've had a little bit of trouble filling with staff lately has been 911 and Hart. And so we're extra thankful for you to come and look at that. Yeah, supporting our schools, supporting our city. Yeah, thank you. Do any of the other commissioners, would you like to make any
Welcome.
comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, yeah. All right, and now we're going to embarrass you by giving you an ovation. Thank you all so much. So we're just moving on? Yeah. Okay. Next up, we're going to read a consent agenda.
So the consent agenda consists of the minutes of the September 1st, 2023 called work session and the September 12th, 2023 regular meeting. And municipal order number 51-23, municipal order awarding bid for purchase of a 2024 Ford F-750 dock truck with a 10-foot J-code dump body from Mid-10 Ford Truck Sales Incorporated of Nashville, Tennessee, in the amount of $92,786.98.
Are there any items that any commissioner would like to pull from the consent agenda for further discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Whitt?
Aye.
Commissioner Bowles?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt?
Aye.
Mayor State?
Aye. Next up, we have a group of second readings, starting with an ordinance awarding telecommunications system.
Ordinance number 25-23, ordinance awarding a non-exclusive telecommunications franchise. An ordinance awarding a non-exclusive franchise to Open Fiber Kentucky Company LLC doing business as Excelicom for a term of 10 years for a telecommunications system within the confines of the city of Henderson, Kentucky, and authorizing the mayor to sign the franchise agreement on behalf of the city.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions, suggestions from the audience or the commission? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Witt,
Aye.
Commissioner Vowles,
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas,
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt,
Aye.
Mayor State.
Aye. Next up, we have an ordinance amending Chapter 8.
Ordinance number 26-23, ordinance amending Chapter 8 cemeteries, and ordinance amending Chapter 8 cemeteries, Article 1 in general, Section 8-3, rules and regulations, and Article 3, fees and charges, Section 8-51, indigent burials of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Henderson.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions, suggestions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Witt,
Aye.
Commissioner Vowles,
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas,
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt,
Aye.
Mayor State.
Aye. And next up, we have a group of first readings, all pertaining to bond issues. First one would be an ordinance authorizing water and sewer general revenue bonds.
Ordinance number 27-23, General Revenue Bond Ordinance. General Revenue Bond Ordinance of the City of Henderson, Kentucky, 1, providing for the establishment of the rules, regulations, and conditions for the issuance or incurrence of obligations secured by the revenues of its combined and consolidated municipal water, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer system from time to time, and 2, providing for the collection, segregation, and distribution of the revenues of the system. The above general revenue bond, the general ordinance, sets forth the general rules, regulations, and conditions for the issuance or incurrence of indebtedness by the City of Henderson, Kentucky, the city, to be secured by the net revenues of the city's combined and consolidated municipal water, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer system. Provisions are made for the authorization and issuance of water and sewer revenue bonds, notes, and other program obligations, such as loans from the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority upon adoption of a series of program ordinance for the application of the proceeds of each such obligation, for the establishment of a proceeds fund, a revenue fund, a sinking fund, a debt service reserve fund, an operation and maintenance fund, and a depreciation fund for certain covenants of the city with respect to the obligations issued or incurred thereunder, and for defaults and remedies with respect to such obligations. Such obligations, when issued, will not constitute an indebtedness of the city within the meaning of any constitutional or statutory provisions or limitations, but will be payable solely from the net revenues of the system to be operated by the Utility Commission of the city, described in Section 96.320 of the Kentucky Revised Statutes, and operating under the name Henderson Water Utility. Reference is hereby made to the full text of the general ordinance for a complete statement of its provisions and terms.
All right, before we get a motion or a second on this, can I ask Robert Gunter to come up to the podium, please? And we are also joined via Zoom by Mark Franklin, Bond Counsel. Just wanted to open the floor for questions pertaining to the next 3 bond issues, because they are pretty major ones. And I wanted to start by asking you a question, Robert, if you don't mind. Can you give us an idea about how this is going to fit into our budget, if we can afford it, how it's going to impact us financially?
Okay. The first one is related to the Water and Sewer Board, and I probably would defer that on why we're doing this to Mark Franklin. It's kind of it's to set up for future revenue bonds. As far as the city's GO bond, we've actually built that into our plans, our future plans, based on what our tax revenue is for the next 20 years. So we're very comfortable that we'll be able to afford that. We've got a very low debt level now. It's barely $1 million a year, so we'll be able to afford future bonds based on the revenue that we're seeing now. And a lot of it's based on the growth that we're seeing in net profits tax, the payroll tax, and the property taxes. So, hope that answers your question on that.
Okay, maybe Mark, if you all remember, Mark gave us a tutorial about a meeting ago about what the difference is between PO bonds and revenue bonds that agencies use. Mark, is there anything you wanted to add? Oh, I see Chip's on there too. Anything you want to add? And do you all want to talk about what our bond rating we got from Moody?
Yeah. Well,
Sure, I could. Go ahead, Mark, you're ready, go ahead. I'll speak first to the ordinance and Chip can follow for the financial side of things. This is the basic bond ordinance that Robert mentioned that lays out the general rules and regulations related to debt to be incurred for the water and sewer system. It provides a framework for how that debt's to be incurred, the government system. It's not unusual, it's common. Any city or water district or county that needs to approve these type of improvements and finance them has a similar document. And so we have put together call it city favorable ordinance we can to achieve this for purposes of the city and provided in this document. So it's, the affordability that Chip can talk about, but we have been aggressive in the terms that we've provided. I could say, for example, in the coverage provisions, for what type of coverage do you need for revenues over expenses and debt service, for example. We've used the lowest number possible. There may be cities with the same coverage requirements you'll have, but I doubt there will be any in Kentucky or surrounding states with a lower requirement. And certainly there will be plenty of the districts and cities and counties with higher requirements. So we've taken the time to be very methodical and pick the most favorable terms we can for the benefit of the city in the ordinance. Chip,
Yeah, I think that's, you got it right, Mark. That's the main thing that we try to do when we're rewriting ordinances is give the city as much flexibility as possible to make it as easy for future councils to borrow money in many different fashions that they need for the benefit of the city, but at the same time do so in such a way that investors feel there's comfort, there's as much security as possible as well, or reliability that the city can doesn't have well the city has is going to repay in the right amount of time. Sorry about it. Looks like the Zoom was sort of going goofy on me there. Dawn, are you catching me okay? Or is it?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you great. Yeah.
All right. Well, sorry, it threw me for a loop. So what I was trying to say in short was that it's important that we have as flexible parameter in there as possible, but at the same time not to the detriment of the credit rating. And when we did go through the credit rating process, the city shook out to a AA3, which is great. The summary statement, I'll read it to you, that I think kind of sums up back to that first question about the debt load that Robert was addressing in terms of the city. But it says the Henderson benefits from a growing local economy outside of Evansville, Indiana, which is rated A1, a strong financial position, a manageable fixed cost, supported by strong utilities. These strengths are balanced by income issues and also the pension issues that the state has. But in terms of the city itself and the debt that the city carries, it's perfectly manageable.
Chip, how does an AA3 rating compare to an A1 rating?
So the AA3 is one notch above the A1 rating. And just for your information, the water and sewer system received a rating one notch below the city, which is typically the case because there's a notching that rating needs to do for the fact that it's a revenue credit, not a general obligation credit.
So I think the most important question would be, just to follow up on what you just said about the bond rating, is even after these bonds would be approved, the rating agencies have stated that our rating will, after these are approved, be an AA3, which is a level above some of our neighboring communities. Is that accurate?
That's fair, yeah.
Okay.
And AA3 is where we wanted to stay. It's the investors. You have a broader pool of investors that can buy your bonds when you're in the AA category, and a large part of the rating's out of your control. It has to do with just the general economy, but the things that are within your control, like city policies that are in place, the amount of debt that you do have issued in controlling that, that has played into the fact why you're AA3 credit rating.
Gotcha, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we clarified for the commission and for the people who are watching that we are in a very strong financial position that has earned us a better rating, a good rating for the bond issue. And aside from reaching a wider audience, that should also lead to a lower interest rate than it would if we had a lower bond rating potentially. Is that correct as well?
That's right. Yeah, the higher the rating, the lower the interest rates, and we expect aggressive bidding for your bonds. Henderson's a well-known name in the Commonwealth of Kentucky for investors that are buying bonds in Kentucky. The AA rating is important, plus you're providing a general obligation security or pledge for this, so that's as strong a pledge as you can possibly provide.
Awesome, thank you so much. And I know that we discussed a lot of this last meeting, but are there any other questions or comments or concerns from our city commission before we go to get a motion on this first bond issue? All right, thank you, Robert. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on Zoom. I'll entertain it.
Before you do
Oh,
that,
sorry, go
I
ahead.
just want to speak, it speaks to the team that we have here, especially Robert in financing and his team, and our city manager and city attorney, and what all they do for us and make sure that we're in the best light, especially when it comes to get a rating of AA, 3, whatever, and so that we can maintain that debt ratio that we can handle it, so.
Well, and when we're entertaining any type of something that is going to add millions of dollars in debt issue for us, I think it's important that we go through these steps to prove that we're still going to be in a strong financial position after that's done, and we're doing it in a fiscally responsible way. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I'll just make one last comment on that point. Part of the rating, which is public, the Moody's Investor Service will look at the governance of the organization, and they actually have they scored the governance a positive. They said that the city reflects strong institutional structure, prudent budget management, and demonstrated policy effectiveness, and it goes on to talk about some of the other things that the city does well. So I just wanted to highlight that that's actually referenced in the rating report, the governance of the city, as being a positive contributor to the strong rating.
Thank you. Thank you so much. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the first bond issue ordinance.
So moved. Second.
We got a first from Commissioner Pruitt, second from Commissioner Thomas. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Witt?
Aye.
Commissioner Bowles?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt?
All right.
Mayor State?
Aye. Next up, we have an ordinance authorizing the water and sewer revenue bond.
Ordinance number 28-23, Series 2023A Water and Sewer Revenue Bond Ordinance. Series 2023A Water and Sewer Revenue Bond Ordinance of the City of Henderson, Kentucky, authorizing the issuance of its City of Henderson, Kentucky Water and Sewer Revenue Bond Series 2023A in an approximate aggregate principal amount of $15,085,000, which amount may be increased by up to $1,510,000 or decreased by any amount, designating the paying agent and registrar with respect thereto, approving the preparation of a preliminary official statement and a final official statement with respect thereto, authorizing the execution of documents related to the Series 2023A bonds on behalf of the city, authorizing and directing the filing of a notice with the state local debt officer, establishing a cost of issuance account, a construction and acquisition account, a principal account, and an interest account for the Series 2023A bonds, providing for the sale of the Series 2023A bonds to the lowest and best bidder, and repealing any inconsistent ordinances. The ordinance authorizes the issuance of a series of water and sewer revenue bonds by the City of Henderson, Kentucky, the city, in accordance with the terms and conditions established in the General Revenue Bond Ordinance of the city enacted on the same date, the General Ordinance. The series of bonds is designated as the City of Henderson, Kentucky Water and Sewer Revenue Bonds Series 2023A, and is authorized to be issued in an aggregate principal amount of approximately $15,085,000, the Series 2023A bonds. excuse me. One, to finance a portion of the cost of acquisition, construction, installation, and equipping of A, new elevated water storage tanks, water mains, and water booster and storage and sewer, goodness gracious, and water booster and sewage pump stations to service a new industrial area in the city. B, upgrades to an existing wastewater treatment basin to handle additional demand. C, improvements to the high-service water pump structure of the North Water Treatment Plant. D, a new water intake and water main at the South Water Treatment Plant. E, improvements relating to sludge processing in the North Wastewater Treatment Plant. And F, a new consolidated administration and operations center, collectively the project, all to be utilized by the city in connection with its existing combined and consolidated water, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer system, the system. 2, to fund a debt service reserve. 3, to pay the cost of credit enhancement for the Series 2023A bonds. And 4, to pay all or a portion of the cost of issuance of the Series 2023A bonds. The Series 2023A bonds are to be secured by a first lien pledge of the net revenues of the system under the ordinance and the general ordinance. In connection with the issuance of the Series 2023A bonds, the ordinance also approves 1, the preparation and distribution of a preliminary official statement and final official statement. 2, the official terms and conditions of sale of the Series 2023A bonds. And 3, the execution of a continuing disclosure undertaking. The Series 2023A bonds are to be sold at advertised public sale in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 424 of the Kentucky Revised Statutes, or by the solicitation of proposals as required by law. The Series 2023A bonds are to bear interest and be payable at such rates and on such interest payments dates as shall be established upon their sale. The ordinance provides that no Series 2023A bond shall have a stated interest rate in excess of 7% per annum.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That is quite okay. Do we have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions, suggestions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Witt?
Aye.
Commissioner Vowles?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt?
Aye.
Mayor Staten?
Aye. Next up,
Okay.
we have one more. Oh, my goodness. We have an ordinance authorizing city general obligation bonds.
Ordinance number 29-23, an ordinance of the City of Henderson, Kentucky, authorizing the issuance of its City of Henderson, Kentucky General Obligation Bonds, Series 2023B, in the approximate aggregate principal amount of $13,655,000, which principal amount may be increased by up to $1,365,000 or decreased by any amount for the purpose of financing, 1, the acquisition, construction, installation, and equipping of A, new fire station for Henderson Fire Department, and B, an extension and related improvements to Barrett Boulevard, and 2, additional cost of construction of the Henderson Sports Complex, approving the form of the bonds, authorizing designated officers of the city to execute and deliver the bonds, authorizing and directing the filing of a notice with the state local debt officer, providing for the payment and security of the bonds, establishing a bond payment fund for the bonds, affirming the maintenance of the existing sinking fund, authorizing the acceptance of the bid of the purchaser for the bonds, and repealing any inconsistent ordinances. The ordinance authorizes the issuance by the City of Henderson, Kentucky, the city, of a series of general obligation bonds to be designated as City of Henderson, Kentucky General Obligation Bonds, Series 2023B, the bonds, for the purpose of 1, financing all or a portion of A, the additional cost of construction of the Henderson Sports Complex, and B, the cost of the acquisition, construction, installation, and equipping of a new fire station for the Henderson Fire Department, and a street extension and related improvements to Barrett Boulevard, collectively the project. 2, paying capitalized interest in the bonds if desirable. 3, paying the cost of any credit enhancement for the bonds. And 4, paying the cost of issuance of the bonds. Provisions are made in the ordinance for the prepayment of the bonds and the security therefore, the application of the proceeds of the bonds, the establishment of a bond payment fund, and continuation of the city's existing sinking fund. The ordinance also contains covenants made by the city in connection with the issuance of the bonds. The bonds are to be sold at public competitive sale and shall mature or be subject to mandatory sinking fund redemption in varying amounts on December 1st, 2024, and each December 1st thereafter until December 1st, 2043. The bonds pledge the full faith, credit, and taxing power of the city, and provision is made for the collection of a tax to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds, subject to certain credits as provided in Section 8 of the ordinance. The sale of the bonds is contingent upon the satisfaction of all of the requirements and conditions of the city with respect to the project as required by KRS Section 83A.060. The following Section 8 of the ordinance is set forth in its entirety. Section 8, General Obligation. The bonds shall be full general obligations of the city and full faith, credit, and taxing power of the city are hereby pledged for the prompt payment of the bonds and the interest thereon. During the period the bonds are outstanding, there shall be, and there hereby is levied annually on all of the taxable property in the city, in addition to all other taxes without limitation as to rate, a direct tax in an amount sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds as and when due, it being hereby found and determined that the current tax rates of the city are within all applicable limitations. The tax shall be and hereby is ordered to be computed, certified, levied, and extended upon the tax duplicate, and shall be collected by the same officers in the same manner and at the same time that taxes for general purposes for each of the years are certified, extended, and collected. The tax shall be placed before and in preference to all other items and for the full amount thereof, provided, however, that in each year, to the extent that any other lawfully available funds of the city are available for the payment of the bonds and are appropriated for such purpose, the amount of such direct tax upon all of the taxable property in the city shall be reduced by the amount of such other funds to be so available and appropriate.
Whew. We should work in your,
Take a breath.
I know, we should work in our contract that paid. Okay, so take a moment to breathe and can I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
We got a motion, we have a second.
Second.
We have any comments, questions, or suggestions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Whitt?
Aye.
Commissioner Vowles?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt?
Aye.
Mayor State?
Aye. Next up, we have a city manager's report.
Just as normal, we do have a rezoning that I'll make you aware of. The Hempel property, as we know it, it's being rezoned from Riverfront to Central Business District. And the Planning Commission approved the rezoning. However, as I always tell y'all, an aggrieved party can file a question that would go to the Planning Commission and back to the City Commission if they so choose to have the Board of Commissioners hear that. So y'all are aware we are the owner of the property, so we are an applicant on that rezoning request. So just want to make you aware of that. And then the second thing, part of the fire station project, we're doing a lot of consolidation. And there was, it was discovered there was an alleyway behind the old IBT church. And part of consolidation, we need to close that alleyway. So I just want to ask for a nod for me to send a letter to the Planning Commission to have a public hearing on the closure of that alleyway. I will tell you, we are basically owners on both sides of the question alley. However, there is two property owners, I think on Ingram Street, that it's questionable whether that's a public alleyway or not, but they'll still have access to the public alley. We're only closing it on our property only. So if y'all are okay with that, I'll send that request on.
Very good to have it. So just to clarify, we're not making a decision on it, we're just sending it down to the Planning Commission so that they can hold a hearing on it.
Correct.
Okay. Is that all on your report today?
Yes, sir.
All right. And I believe our city attorney is getting ready to do her report.
Well, I'll be doing this alone. Matt? Buzzy, do you want to, or Josh, do you want to introduce Matt to the commission?
I don't know if y'all know Division Chief, this is Matt Anderson. He's the new fire marshal that got promoted and took my former position, but he's been the help with Don and the brains behind the battery storage, and he's here to answer questions if needed.
As you all know, when we have a zoning ordinance change, we originate the change in this body, but then you all vote to send it to the planning commission for a full public hearing. After that public hearing, depending on what their recommendation is, it will come back to you all for 2 reads. If you all approve it at that point, our zoning ordinance will change. We found out, and we've had a pretty short turnaround time on this. I think Buzzy would agree with that. And it's been all hands on deck in the last 2 weeks trying to draft a battery energy storage zoning ordinance to protect the city. And so we want to go over that with you. Generally, we send this to you all early so that you all know that it's coming. We honestly were making changes this morning to it. I will tell you that the county too is looking at battery. So you will notice that their ordinance is going to look somewhat similar to ours. So, well, maybe. Let's see if we can get this moving. Here we go. So battery energy storage systems, our ordinance will split them up between tier 1 battery energy storage systems, and those are those that are under 600K. Those are batteries that are on like your home solar panels or your business solar panels. These are not to support the grid. These are smaller ones. And then we have tier 2 battery energy storage system. Now these are the big ones that energy systems use, solar use, wind powers use. So these are the large operations. I wanted to make sure that you understood that our zoning ordinance is not addressing car batteries or Teslas or anything like that. We have a specific exemption in there for that. So this does not in any way deal with those. So this is what they look like. I thought you all might want to see what they look like. They are in these, and maybe Matt, you can tell them what's inside these.
So
I can explain it to them.
inside of these, there'll be individual racks stacked vertically, and you'll have lithium-ion batteries just in storage racks. They're all held together that are refilled off of the grid and then used in peak usage times to help offset our city's consumption as it continues to grow.
And there's air conditioning units?
Yes,
in
so they're
these?
all individually climate-controlled. Lithium-ion batteries do have working temperatures that they work between hot and cold, so they will have, each of them will have individual HVAC units to make them temperature-controlled, as well as fire protection systems built into them and alarm systems.
Oh, just so you all kind of know what we're talking about here. So under our zoning ordinance, the first part is definitions. The definitions, as you see, are pretty much the standard definitions, just letting you all know what references that our ordinance is going to reference out to. What are the national standards that we're adopting? Recognize that if we don't adopt these, they are not applicable. So we needed to make sure that we have these applicable, so if we ever have one of these, that we have the safety protocols that are in place on the national levels. So when we look at zoning, we said tier 1 batteries are permitted in all zones, except for recreational and green spaces on our riverfront. So pretty much anywhere in the city, you can have a tier 1 battery. So if you want a solar panel on your home, this will not restrict it. Now you may have some, your ceilings may not be able to support it, but that's a whole different ballgame. But we're not going to zone those out. Tier 2 battery energy storage will only be allowed in M2 heavy industrial district, and it will only be as a conditional use. And with that, we have additional requirement notices for property owners that will be within a half-mile radius. So generally, when you have a conditional use, the requirement is that any adjoining property owner receives notice. But if one of these is coming in, we're going to require under our code that if you're within a half-mile radius of property owner, you will receive notice that this is coming. And you'll have the opportunity to come to the Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting to hear about the project and be able to voice any concerns or make any requests on conditions. And they are required to meet all NFPA 855 standards, tested and certified to UL 9540. Do you want to tell them what the NFPA 855 standards, kind of an overview of what that means?
Yep, so NFPA 855 is listed as the standard for the installation of stationary energy systems. So this technology is still relatively new, and as we found out in our stuff, it changes month to month on the technology that's coming out, the materials that it's made. So making sure that we adopt this standard, I think, will give us our greatest chance of staying ahead of the curve and making sure that we have the safest systems that we have installed here in Henderson.
And this is a national standard, correct?
Yes, yep.
So this is, by adopting it, we're going to follow what's going on with these systems in New York, in California, in Arizona. These are places, Massachusetts, New York, Arizona, California, where these battery systems are already in play and they're being functioned. I did want to quickly talk to you all. We looked at M1, light industrial, and M2. We actually did a deep dive in the city on whether we could put these in M1s to make it broader, allow more. But when we looked, the blue is M1, the green is residential. We just felt like so much of our M1s are right next to residential that was probably not a good idea. And that's because the city is so dense. You know, that's just part of it. So I did want to let you all know that we did look to see if we could expand this, but once we really looked at the residential, we realized that there's really, because of the way the city played out, couldn't do it. So our general requirements in the zoning is it's going to meet all the Kentucky building codes, the national codes, the NFPA 13, the International Mechanics, the 855, which is what Matt just talked to you all about. And we're also requiring that if NFPA says that there has to be a safety plan, that safety plan is going to have to be, it's not just that they give us one, but that our fire chief or his designee is going to have to approve that plan. Because unfortunately, sometimes these batteries overheat. And you want to explain how that happens? It's a chemical.
It's called thermal runaway. So these lithium-ion batteries, actually, when they start overheating, it's a chemical reaction that occurs, which produces an exothermic, heats up itself to very high temperatures, which produce off-gassing, multiple toxic gases, carbon monoxide, that kind of thing. And then it's not just a normal fire; it's part of that exothermic reaction. So it's harder to put out on as far as our standards for what we need to do to put out. So that's why we wanted to limit its exposure towards residential, keep it kind of limited.
And part of it is, we want to plan ahead. So we want to make sure that the fire plan that you are giving us for this potential property really meet what they can do with that, the water that they can bring in, what they need with that. So we went a little above that, but I think it's necessary because we're in a city. A lot of these are located in counties or less dense areas. It also requires a site plan to go to the Henderson City County Planning. And with that, you can see all that we're requiring. And you'll see on there, we're requiring a decommissioning plan. And we'll get to that in just a second. But that's not something we normally require. But because of this technology and the potential of it, we felt like we needed to make sure that when industries or when companies are coming in to establish these, that they understand that when the useful life of these are over with, we expect our community to be protected and that they remove this equipment and return the property to what it was like before. Just a few additional regulations, 24-hour day monitoring. signage, lighting, vegetation, tree cutting, noise, screening. I will tell you that one thing that we found out about as we were researching this is they can be noisy, but the noise comes from each one of those units has its own air handling. And so when you put that many units together, and you said some of the units have even more than one.
In hotter regions, yes, ma'am, they require more to keep them temperature controlled.
So that the noise on these, and that was another reason we did not want them by residential property, is because the noise of these can be quite, so we had put decimal requirements on it. We put screening requirements where the fencing is, has to go around it with barbed wire on the top, and then evergreens that are at least 6 feet outside the barbed wire fencing to cover just for aesthetics and also for noise, because that evergreen will help that. I told you that we do have a decommissioning in sight. We will require, and Planning Commission will hold the bonds on these, but we will require either a 2 to 3% cost bond. So, and that will be reviewed every 3 years to determine whether that bond needs to go up to cover any decommission costs. One of the things that we talked about yesterday is decommissioning, not just at end of life, but decommissioning if there's a catastrophic failure. Unfortunately, it's rare, but there have been some catastrophic failures on these, and so we just want to make sure that our community is protected with that. So we can answer any questions. I know I went fast, so you all.
Okay, real quick, Don, you say
Yeah.
catastrophic failure. Explain to me what that means and what happened in that catastrophic failure.
So with the thermal runaway inside the battery bank, so you have them all stacked next to each other. So you have the thermal runaway, one of the lithium-ion batteries starts heating up, causing off gases with all the different toxic gases it puts off, catches on fire, which then expands inside that container, which is part of what we're requiring as far as explosion protection, ventilation, and all that to keep from a possible, it's called a deflagration, where it can actually, those gases can ignite and blow out through the sides of the container. That's more your catastrophic stuff as far as the potential of the bad parts of those.
And if that gas gets out, is any data on how dangerous that is to the citizens in the area or what?
So I mean, that's why we required the when we did the zoning, but to keep it away from residential, we're trying to put it as remote as we can. It seems like with other large facilities that have had issues, they've done a quarter mile evacuation has been pretty standard if they've had to, and then a shelter in place order for areas around that too, which then closes as the incident goes on and they start getting the air readings. But initially, we're looking at potentially some evacuation distances depending on the size of the incident, how large the fire is, how big of an incident we have going on.
Right, and that's one of the reasons we want to get ahead of this and make sure that we adopt the NFPA 855, because that should protect us from those catastrophic failures. If we didn't adopt those and they came in now, we wouldn't have any say over, the fire safety that are required. So that's why we're coming to you to make sure that we have the things in place to help prevent those things from happening.
Mayor, I want to congratulate Dawn and Matt, Steve Davis in the back, Josh Dixon, Jennifer Marks, and Brian Bishop on all the work that has been put together on this. It has been a very short amount of time. We will tell you that the technology is new. We have had to grasp and pull from all over the country of what other people are doing. So with that being said, in the state of Kentucky, Henderson will be on the forefront of creating probably the first battery storage ordinance. So Dawn may become the next expert, and maybe she and Matt can go on the road and sell their wares. But the one thing I will say is we have shared this document with Brad Beckett at Hempel. He's reviewed it. He doesn't see any recommendations at this point in time. And the last thing I'd like to recommend is that we secure a consultant to help us confirm this proposed ordinance, as well as be our consultant at any time in which a submittal comes before the planning commission, because we technically are not experts in this field, and we will need to rely on someone to help us. But I will say that Matt, thus far, has really been beneficial in doing research of what's out there. And so that would, my only comments I want to add to this process.
So,
It's really consumed, I mean, Matt became fire chief and then became an expert on batteries since we've been on such a short leash. But this will probably, if it goes to planning commission and it comes back, we will be the first city, at least in KLC's opinion, to adopt a ordinance on this, and the county's following right behind us.
Commissioner Witt, I think you had a question?
Oh, yeah, I mean, so I think of like, take a Division of Oil and Gas, right, that regulates oil wells across the state, so does the state not
State has
have
not
any
adopted.
governing?
I
No.
contacted the EPA, and it drew a blank with them.
Yeah.
So
I do a lot of work with the State Division of Oil and Gas from that. I mean, I know it's very complex with oil wells. I mean, this is kind of the same thing, right, especially when it comes to abandoned oil wells or
Right.
abandoned battery facilities and the cost of the bonds afterwards. So, yeah, it's crazy that they don't have
Yeah.
on it, but appreciate all y'all's work, because it is very complicated and be more complicated once you start trying to keep track of the bonds and enforcing it would be tough, but I'm glad to see you on the forefront of it.
And I love the fact that you included a decommissioning plan
Yeah, I do too.
in there too.
Well,
Just
well-
to go along with what you just said, I mean, it's so important and
man.
critical. So what you're looking for from us is just, do we have a motion or just an agreement to
You
send it
need a
down?
motion to
So-
send it to zoning for a
Okay.
public hearing, for them to hold a public hearing. And if they're able to if we do that today, it will be on their November meeting, so we can bring this back to you if they approve it, for first read in November and second read in November.
So we're sending it into the planning commission?
We are,
Or that's what we're contemplating anyway?
yes.
Are there any other questions before we do entertain a motion to do that? Okay, so we're not approving anything today, but we're just, I would like to entertain a motion to send this down to the planning commission for further review. We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Witt?
Aye.
Commissioner Vowles?
Aye.
Commissioner Thomas?
Aye.
Commissioner Pruitt?
Aye.
Mayor Staten?
Aye, and I also want to follow up on something that our city manager just said as well. Do we need a motion to retain consultants, or is that something we have already covered in our budget?
That I think he just needs to nod, and we will go forward and bring it back to you for professional services, but just I think we wanted to say, are you all okay? Because he's found someone that we're talking with, and we'll start negotiating with him if you all are okay.
Well, I'll start with Commissioner Thomas there on the end.
I'm good.
Okay, Commissioner Witt?
Sure.
Commissioner Vales? Commissioner Pruitt? I think we're good to go. All right, and this is a special call meeting, and just in case you're not aware of the rules of special call meeting, we are not allowed to go off script or off the agenda on the special call meeting. So that is the end of our agenda for this meeting. As such, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
And we will be in recess until 3:55, at which time we will start the work session for homelessness in downtown Parkland.